Okay, we seem to be online and recording, I think. That's good. So today I'm going to do just checking you guys coming in now. That's great. So, great. Hello, Helen. Welcome. Yep. And welcome to other people coming in now. That's great. Cool, so I'll just sort of probably wait a minute or so just for any latecomers, and then I'll make a start. In the meantime, I will welcome you to my sunny garden today, which is nice to be able to do this out here for a change. I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to be today talking about positioning your marketing department for progress. It seems kind of odd sometimes just talking about positioning to marketing departments. Of course, that's that's a specialty of marketing. But in this way, possibly thinking about it in a different sort of way, a way that can help you with the department and your careers. So let me just start by sharing the presentation that I have. Looks like it's this one. Cool. And I should be able to do that, which is good, and still have the chat open, which has now disappeared. Chat, there you go. Cool. All right, good. Well, welcome everybody. I think it's a lovely day here in Sydney, and I thought I'd risk being outside today, despite the fact that we had the most crazy 10-minute storm yesterday, which saw my pot plants fly from one side of the garden to the other as if they were sort of possessed by something. So, obviously that was not the major impact for Sydney. We had an awful lot of trees down, all sorts. It was absolutely insane. It went from absolutely nothing to 4-scale winds, just out of nowhere. It was the most extraordinary thing. And then just as suddenly it stopped. But the devastation in those sort of what was probably about what in Bosman was 10 minutes has been extraordinary. Anyway, I've been lacking just some pot plants, so hey, I'm not complaining. Anyway, so it seems like a fairly calm day today. I thought I'd risk being out here in the garden. I work from home. I have an office here, but I have to say that it's quite nice to work outdoors sometimes and have all this lovely natural light to keep me awake. Good. All right. Well, look, thank you very much indeed for joining us. I know that there will be some who'll be watching this at a later date as well. And that's cool as well, of course. And if you've got any questions, just chuck them into the chat message. If you've got any questions while you're watching it, when you're watching it at a later date, just send me an email. I'm happy to answer them. Any points you want to make. If you vehemently disagree with me, I think I've really got it wrong, then please let me know. That could only be helpful. And if there's something that I do or say or don't do or say in this webinar that you think would be an improvement if I changed, please let me know. All of these things really help me with my business. I don't take it personally. I do take action, and it's just great to get feedback. So good. Let's make a start. Less chatting probably. Good. Okay, so trying to move this forward, and it's that seems to be being very happy. All right, so first of all I want to tell you this story, and this is sort of tells you about how times move on, I suppose. This is a building in London. It's used to be called the Pitman Building. Now, in the days when secretaries were very important, in fact before that even, when it was all copy typists, this whole building was the premier secretarial school in London. And my father, not having come from any academic background and being very confident that he really wanted me to be able to provide for my own living and not have to marry for money, said at least you can support yourself. And we're talking about that far back when people would have thought like that. And he said, whatever else you do, you have to go to secretarial school. So I wasn't terribly impressed, but I picked a condensed course before I went to university, and I did it. But of course, times changed, and while I did use it, the typing particularly for taking notes at university, and I can now touch type, etc., and at a fairly fast rate, this is not what is the case these days. And just like this, everything else has changed too. So if we It's going to be very interesting if it's not going to move around very fast for me. There you go. So businesses change, of course, to the same extent everything else does. Here we go. There's a nice videotape. I remember those being extremely new and very exciting things, to be able to capture something and keep it visually without actually having to be some sort of visual engineer was a marvelous thing. Surveys were done, stopped people in the street. If you asked somebody what they did and they said they were a market researcher, expected them to have a clipboard on them at all times. This was the typing pool. I mean, I was a bit after this time, but nonetheless, I can actually say that I worked in a typing pool. So they basically provided you with heaps of paper that people had written on, and you just basically typed it out, and you put it from an inbox to an outbox, and you gave it back to the lady who sat at a higher desk at the end of the room, and that's what it was. So I did that just in school holidays, of course. It paid good money, so I was happy to do it. Yeah, but it seems insane that you should pay somebody to do that now. And of course, you used to be able to advertise Guinness for strength, which you can't anymore, fortunately. So times have changed an awful lot. And I'd just like to encourage you to think about how your job has changed in the meantime. And if your industry or your company, therefore, is altering course, it stands to reason that your role will need to change to be able to suit that change and to be able to support that business. So it's worth having a think about what the changes are and what they will be. We have a tendency to think that change is something that has happened, not something that is currently happening right now. And if we think about that, all the industries and change will change as we go forward, and that rate of change, of course, will increase. We ourselves can't stand still either. So what are we doing, and what role are we playing, and how are we managing to step up is what we're going to be looking at today. This is a nasty statistic, isn't it? 80% of CEOs mistrust or are unimpressed with their CMOs versus 10% who feel similarly about CFOs and CIOs. This is a 2012 figure. I mean, it may well have changed, but presumably hasn't changed that much. I think that's a dreadful statistic. You'd really need to get to the bottom of why that was and what they meant by mistrust or unimpressed. Tend to think it's something along the lines of, I know that half of my marketing budget is wasted, but I don't know which half. This idea that there's a smoke and mirrors, this idea that there's maybe a lack of accountability or an unpredictability about marketing in general. Definitely, we've seen a demotion of marketing in many companies, which has been signaled by the fact that there are fewer CMOs and fewer positions in leadership positions in marketing, and far more at the executional level than the strategic level these days. And I think that's a tremendous shame, and I'll go on to see if I can help us retain some of that authority that we need to have because of the knowledge and skills that we have and that we can give to the business. So why has this happened? Was it always the case? And what is going on? What has changed? So I want to tell you about the story of Rebecca. So I've got it written down here, so forgive me for just looking at this for a minute. But just have a think about Rebecca's career here and think about whether or not this is anything like yours or anybody you know, or it could be anything to do with yours. So she was originally promoted and delighted to be promoted into the position that the previous CMO left. However, it was a bit of a reduction in role because she's now being called head of marketing and digital. But she soon found that her job was going to be more complicated than Mike's was, as Mike was working far more at a higher level. So technology had changed, times had changed. Mike definitely had the ear of the executive team and was mainly concerned with strategy himself. He created visions, he created award-winning advertising with large amounts of budget that she never got. She's now got a more complex role. She's dealing with digital strategy, ideas, social media. She's dealing with insights, innovation, promotions and communications in general. And he hired various experts, but she hired experts, but the budgets were still shrinking. Digital skills were essential, are essential in this world, but times are changing, and marketing in Rebecca's world was in danger of becoming the comms department rather than the marketing department. The business didn't look to marketing to plan growth strategy anymore, whereas it used to, and instead it was there to support others. Change was constant, change was unbridled. In rushing around executing a fragmented media plan, she wondered how the team could remain focused. And did the ideas even fit with the strategy? Because ideas were coming thick and fast, and ideas seemed to be the hero. And she was wondering whether or not the focus and attention were still relevant. There seemed to be a new strategy every month. There seemed to be a new direction. So everything was starting to change so fast, it was hard to see where the real value was being added. So there were attempts to get agreement on brand direction, but they were frustrated, and marketing didn't seem to be able to have jurisdiction over this. Anyone's idea was as good as anybody else's, along with a lot of other functions. This is definitely about the democratization of marketing. Anybody's idea is a great idea, in the same way as, everybody knows consumers, in a way that it used to only be, certain parts of the business that had that area as a specialization. We had brand keys, of course, but they seem to be a slave to the god of wordsmithing rather than bringing to life any crystallized vision. So over time, they found themselves executing ideas they weren't really proud of. And the department had gone from being proactive to being perhaps more reactive. And they were losing heart and perhaps losing their way a little bit. She knew that she had to get a grip on what was happening so that they could deliver value, but the team pulled together a stronger strategy and a better execution on ideas. And even so, they were having problems selling them in, because when they tried to sell them into the business, they were hitting a wall. They hadn't built the relationships that they needed to do to be able to get through to stakeholders, and they failed to couch their pitch in terms of business. So it was not as convincing as it should have been. So when the ideas needed pushing through, it was usually she who had to do it. She found that others in her team lacked those skills, and it was really exhausting for her. So overall, she knew that they had not built bridges with other departments. She suspected other parts of the business no longer saw marketing as a serious business function. And meanwhile, the CEO challenged her to improve their effectiveness. So something really did have to change for her and the team. And she was wondering how she could do that. And I think that's in fact, that story I put together based on interviews with a number of heads of marketing. And of course, heads of marketing come in all different shapes and sizes and guises and job descriptions these days. And just saying that basically, has marketing really lost its way? And have the people within it, how are they to deliver against what the company really needs, even given their very best efforts? So I don't know if that rings true for any of you. I'd be very interested to hear more. So thinking about your job and your function in the industry and what it does, who it does it for, and how it does it, I'd like to invite you to think about what changes there have been in the last 15 years. And I'd also like you to think about what changes there have been in your company in the last 15 years. If you've only been around for a shorter period of time than that, then just think about that. Just take a minute now to have a think about those changes. And because of that, of course, what have the changes been in your function in the last 15 years? For some people, it's very difficult to think that through, because in fact, the changes have been so great that it's not even the same thing anymore at all. But what this is indicating is that we need to change the way we think about what we're doing because of the changes in the industry and the company and our function. Cool. That's great. Next idea I'd like to introduce to you is the one of effectiveness. Obviously, we are effective if we add value if we're able to influence others to act. We can't carry out all of the things ourselves. We have to be able to take our ideas and sell in our thinking and be persuasive and be influential and create the right thinking and be able to influence with that thinking, and that creates effectiveness. To do that, we also need to position ourselves correctly, and hence we are given credibility to deliver the most useful work in the most useful way to the key people. So for me, effectiveness equals influence. And there's a lot of evidence now that companies are hiring people, not just based on their technical skills, but also based on their people skills, with their ability to make things happen. So not that you just do a great job yourself, but you're able to pass your thinking on to create action in the business amongst other people, and that being a very powerful thing to be able to do. So, sorry, we'll go back. So how influential is your team? One of the ways to think about how influential your team is to work out what your stakeholders would say your team was about and what role they played. That's it's a high bar, but it's probably a truer one than what we ourselves would think, because we can think ourselves influential. If the people we're influencing don't think we are, then we probably aren't so much. So let's have a think about what role we might be playing. So hopefully your teams are not at level 1 provider, and they're more towards level 2 and level 3, but let's have a look at this model. Level 1 is at the bottom level really here. So we're talking about other people bypassing you. This is a bit of a painful position to be in, and my sympathies go out to anybody who's been recruited into a role that they thought was more influential in the business than it is. But at the bottom level here, level 1, you're meeting executional needs that the business is requiring from you, or basically probably firing at you. You're aware of the strategy, but your work is reactive. Your creative is compromised. You're not given credence properly for the experience and the knowledge and the talents and skills that you have in this area, and you become an executional department. So here, of course, the rewards or lack of them are really that the budgets get reduced, you have compromised work, and you've got very little autonomy. You know, things will get shot through the door at a moment's notice, you'll have to react, and morale's going to be low. There's some fabulous work done by Daniel Pink, yes, and he has 3 things that he says motivates white-collar workers. He's done some experiments on this. One is a sense of purpose and being rewarded against that purpose. The second is autonomy, so being able to work against your responsibilities rather than be given tasks. And the third one is increased mastery, so to keep on learning and growing. You put those 3 things together and you realize that level 1 isn't providing any of them. So that's going to be a pretty miserable place to work. So probably got high staff turnover or just poor performing staff in the first place. So that's difficult. Number 2, you're moving up here a bit. You're at a supporter level, you're acknowledged, and your work is acknowledged. That's great. You're aware of the strategy, you can talk brand strategy, you can provide some good executions. You're still getting a few of them compromised, but I suppose that's sort of par for the course. You're getting some wins, but your budgets are still getting threatened. There are fewer opportunities, particularly your budgets around people are getting threatened. There are fewer opportunities than there would be where you hire up. There's still lower autonomy. And I think we have to think about level 1 and level 2 and think, okay, so if they're thinking about reducing your budgets in terms of staff, there is a possibility that, there is a possibility that, you know, at some point in the future, there will be a consideration of outsourcing to cheaper markets to be able to do this sort of thing. There's a number of people, sort of including myself, who from time to time work with people in the Philippines, for example, who have perfect English and a great understanding of you know, how to express yourself, to be able to provide social media, for example, etc. You know, there's a lot of work that's now being offshored. So we need to think very carefully about how do we retain our value in that environment. Level 3, driver level. So obviously this is where you'd like to be, level 3. Obviously people are respecting you at this point highly. You're writing business strategy and or you're writing brand strategy, and the business is respecting that strategy and the importance of it. They're looking to you for it because they know how important brands are in terms of delivering incremental value. You're delivering outstanding executions to these, which is great. And this is, it's a really nice place to be, because you've got higher budgets, you've got a more motivated team, you've got higher status, you're going to have more opportunities, you're going to be able to pick your opportunities, to be able to decide how best you use your team and your work. And this is very rewarding. It's also very powerful for the business, because really the marketing team are the best people to be able to identify what the growth strategy should be. It is the marketing team who should know where the growth opportunities are and how they are going to go about getting those people on board. So it's a great waste when that doesn't happen. And you definitely have all of the tools in your kit to be able to reach those levels, or to be able to talk those business, or to go as far as your business is permitting you to do. And it's so worth going that far, because those are the roles which will become more secure in the future. And the future is really not terribly far away. As we say, change is happening faster and faster. Good. Actually, before I do that, I just wonder if, actually, no, we'll stay where we are. That's cool. So have a think about whether or not you are level 1, 2, or 3, and what you might need to do to get up there. Now, I'm going to help you with that. That's my job. So let me show you this. I have a model of influence, and as I say, in the context that I'm talking, influence and effectiveness are very much aligned. So they're very similar, if not pretty much the same. And what my model is about is showing the things that if you turn up the dial on these, you will be able to increase your influence and your effectiveness. We can start pretty much anywhere really, but why not start with professional relationships? So we will be focusing on positioning in a minute, but professional relationships, so important. Business school, to my mind, and business degrees do not concentrate nearly half as much as they should on people. Business is people, or half task, half people. If you're not pulling the people lever, you're really only performing at half of your potential. It is the relationships that develop opportunities. It's people who say yes to things, who say no to things, who help things move forward, or who prevent things from moving forward. And therefore, it is those relationships and the ability and behaviors around empowering each other which help you get your ideas through and help make things happen. And businesses need to make things happen, and so does everybody within that business. So it's an absolutely key skill, incredibly important, to be able to empower others, because empowering others is the best way to achieve your own goals. So learning how to communicate and build relationships with different sorts of people in order to understand what they really need and to be able to provide it through what you're doing, this is the best way to harness people to your cause. I'm just going to go anti-clockwise so that we end up at positioning. Effective communication, incredibly important in any business. It doesn't matter where you are in business now. I don't know if you know this, but it's been found that we are presented with 174 newspapers worth of information every single day. Now, look, I'd love the time to be able to sit and read a whole newspaper in a day, but there's no way that I could ever read 174 of them. Quite crazy. Coupled with the fact that we have reduced attention spans these days. Now, if we put aside the state of mind that we are in when we're in flow, in which case we can be concentrating for long periods of time, when we're actually skimming through things or just looking at things on an everyday basis rather than really focused, our attention span in the year 2000 was, according to Microsoft, was 12 seconds. It has now reduced to 6 seconds. And you'd be delighted to know that a goldfish has 9 seconds. So right now we're doing worse than a goldfish. So if you can imagine trying to get 174 newspapers worth of information into a attention span of 6 seconds. The significant thing to point out there is that your email, your communication is amongst the 174 newspapers. So you want somebody to act on what you do. The very first thing you have to do is for them to notice and engage with what you're doing. And it sounds blindingly obvious and not necessary to labour, but I really think it is, and it's going to be increasingly important, those skills of actually getting noticed and having impact in the first place. So that's important. When you've got that, the ability to engage and inspire. So there's inform, engage, inform, and inspire. So of course, storytelling is part of that. By creating professional relationships and effective communication, we're being able to accelerate the ideas, accelerate the business, accelerate the action. The third one round is strategic vision. It is incredibly important to, if you're not in a position where you're even able to develop strategy, well, that's fine. Can you learn what the strategies are so that you can actually pin your executions more firmly to the strategies? Can you do that? Can you bring the strategy to life in some way through your executions more fully so that you're more and more tailored towards the business goals? That is fantastic. And if strategy is within your remit, how can you ensure that we have strategic vision rather than what are we going to do this year, which is not the same thing at all. I've definitely worked with companies large and small who've had amazing strategies, that have because you can't just capture a market in a year. So, if your strategy is to capture this market or to grow this or whatever, 1 year is just not going to do it. So you're going to have a long-term strategy than that. And we're not talking about advertising strategy, we're talking about marketing strategy. So I've worked with some who've done great, and I've also worked with some large companies who, while they believe they've got brand strategy, it's really about what are we going to get our advertising to do this year. So trying to see if we can get past that to something that's bigger and stronger, and which we can therefore pin our ideas to. If you're selling in your ideas, the strongest way to do it is to say, okay, you bought the strategy, I can now prove why this delivers against the strategy. And it's not a matter of whether or not you like the idea, it's a matter of whether or not it delivers against the brief. So fabulous. If you can do the communication and you can do the vision, then obviously this is a leadership position. It's something that will inspire others. So this is a fantastic thing to be able to do. And then, of course, the fourth one, which we're coming on to today, is positioning. And I'll explain that in detail. So yes, when you've got your positioning and your strategic vision, you have a position of authority. People are going to be listening to you. And the point about positioning is not necessarily that you go out and shout about it to people internally, because I don't think for a minute that they'll be interested in listening to you. But it's a case of what are you to yourself? But I'll explain all that in a second. Okay. So this is what we're going to be doing today. Let's have a think about poor positioning within a company. So we think about a model that's got two dimensions. We've got company versus team, and we've got empower versus enrich. So this is, you'll see how this comes about in a minute, but if you think about these four quadrants, this is what happens if you don't have good positioning. So first of all, in terms of empowering, within the organization, the department will, if it's got poor positioning, will have low status. So very disempowered, and not being able to be given opportunities and not regarded well, not given high budgets or anything like that. Everything in that respect is poor. In terms of enriching the experience, within the company, you'll get low involvement, little involvement in strategic decision making. And in terms of enriching the team, there'll be stagnation. I mean, you can't grow from this position. You can't enrich people's experience of their careers, get them to increase mastery, etc. So there's going to be stagnating. And in terms of empowering, you're going to lack control over your team's work. People are going to come in the door, and there's many doors these days, but come around to your area of the office, and suddenly everything will be down tools on one thing and take up something on something else. And that's a very dissatisfying way to be, because you're reacting to task rather than responsibility, and you're not able to control what you're doing. So all of that, of course, risks irrelevance and a lack of authority. But obviously, if we're turning it around the other way, with the company, the empowerment within the company, get status and recognition within the organization. Have a think now about what that would mean for you, how your day would be if you were able to deliver deliver against a positioning you decided for the department, and you're able to get higher status and recognition. You'd have higher involvement in strategic decision making. You'd have professional and personal growth for individuals. And you'd have autonomy over your team's work, and all of this is, so important. and you'll be moving forward. These things are a spiral. You know, you're increasing your status and power and opportunity and budgets and all those things within the organization, or it's all reducing. So you have to keep kicking it round the right way. Good. Okay. So pretty simple, really. Weak positionings give you boring work versus challenging work. You get a motivated team rather than a stagnated one. You can work more as you want to and less as others wish you to. And the reason for that is not just that you would like to work how you like to work, but because you're the experts in your field, you should know the best way for you to deliver your skills. That's what this is really about in terms of autonomy. You'll be able to deliver better work because you can decide what it is and how you do it. You know, you're acknowledged, you're rewarded, you're not taken advantage of because there are more clear boundaries. Your budgets are likely to be increasing or at least protected, and there'll be less staff churn. So what is a positioning when used for a department? It seems odd to be talking about it like that, doesn't it? When obviously I'm talking to marketing people, and you guys all know about how what positioning means and how it works. And maybe you're thinking, what do you think, we've got to do some sort of PR campaign on ourselves internally? And obviously that's not what I'm talking about at all. So worry not, I've gone nuts. But yeah, so it's what people respond to you as being. I think that's the most important thing. So you can see that when you're trying to sell an idea, or you're trying to create a strategy or whatever, it's going to be given more credence if it comes from the right place. So what people respond to you as being is important. It's something you do and consistently are, not something you say you are. It's the same as positioning for a brand, of course, in that respect. It's about, you know, the integrity of what you're doing. And it's a way for people to classify you, which makes it easier for them to work with you. I remember many years of thinking that I really didn't want to be pigeonholed and this was awful and everything. But actually, in recent years, have learned that in order for people to, in my case, buy me, I and if you think about why we exist, which is really optimize our confidence the world thing, which would be might be something else, but can you see that the difference between, if you like, more material, if you like, creating products which do this, with our purpose, which then gives us scope to do other things, and it also has how they might do something which is in just a second. So yeah, I want to have a think about sparkly topic. Okay. So you think about whether or not you're working on a ferry or on a project, and I take care of that. So imagine that you're working on a but you're still working on a ferry, and of course there are apologies with different types of marketing departments, and that's what I'm thinking here. But imagine that you think you're working on a ferry, but actually you're working on a cruise ship, and you're on a boat and you've still got crew around you and you're doing things, but somehow or other comes 7 o'clock, you're expected to put on a sparkly jacket and dance on the stage in the middle of the room. Well, clearly that's going to be a surprise. So be very clear as to whether or not you are on a cruise ship or you're on a ferry, and whether or not, in fact, you're on a ferry and you'd like to be on a cruise ship. And that's really the best service that your department could be, is to be a cruise ship rather than a ferry, or to be a ferry rather than a cruise ship. But do think about exactly what it is that your department can best offer to the business, and to make sure that your stakeholders know that. And they will know that because you'll tell them, but you'll also know that because your behavior will be so clearly about that one focus that it becomes obvious, just like positioning everything else. So why are you doing what you're doing? So you might be delivering marketing solutions to the business, but why are you doing it? Look, probably I'd like you to mix. Obviously, really start with talking about the marketing, talking about what we'll do. I'm not really thinking it's really, but I think it's why you hire what you really should be doing more of, how you should be operating. So that becomes very a different question. In terms of positioning. Okay, just a second. So, hoping that you can now hear me, though you will hear also garbage trucks. Hoping that you can hear me now. You're one participant, somebody as well. So that's fine. That's cool. Okay, cool. Okay. Just getting back onto the screen. So looking at which level of the department you're at. Right, so is it level 1? So where the level is, you've got an implicit purpose and positioning. So your traditional role is assumed, but there isn't any, basically you're not delivering it. Or is it that you know the higher positioning, but you're not thinking of your day-to-day work as enacting it?
or is it that you're knowing the positioning, but you don't think about how to deliver it at a higher level? Or is it that you've got a driving force here, which is fantastic? Hired, trained, evaluated, rewarded, and everything on the purpose, the reason why we exist. It drives everything that you do. So have a think about those and see where you are now and where you'd like to be, because there is so much more value in the top part of this model than there is in the bottom part. So let's have a look at the power of verbs. When you're writing this, have a think about writing active, not passive, writing a solution, not a problem base. So you're actually writing about, you're thinking about it in terms of creating something rather than preventing something. Outcome, not process based. So think about what you're trying to deliver into the business in terms of an outcome, rather than what it is that you're doing that delivers that. Try to be inspiring, not boring. Always use simple words. Try to avoid jargon all the time. Be simple-minded. It just stays with people for longer. It'll stay with you for longer. It'll be easier to execute. Be heroes. Here are some examples of some great verbs you can use, and many others. But just add brilliance to it. To lead this, to delight that, to supercharge this. To think about what words you can use that will push your team forward. Having a think now about how. Now, do we believe she's a doctor? Actually, no, we're still living. Why? But do you believe she's a doctor? Of course, we don't believe she's a doctor. And this is really why. So we have to, positioning is three things. It's what you say you are, it's what you do and you don't do, and it's how you do it. And that will tell other people what it is that's important in terms of what you're really about and what you can deliver. How do we know she's a management consultant? There are certain things that management consultant will do. For example, what is it? How do they do it? Most importantly, how do they do it? I have a think about what are not just the deliverables, but how they are delivered. And it's the how that people seem to forget quite a bit. I've been talking quite a lot recently with people around training people on business relationship development. And one of the things there is that we plan what we say, we don't plan how we say it. And how is at least as important as what. So think about how do management consultants, or how would a department that had your purpose, forget about what you currently do for a minute while you're executing this, how would they do things? If a department was just focused on that thing, whatever that sentence now is, how would you expect them to deliver? And how would you not expect them to deliver? And how can you change what you're doing to meet that? Because it will communicate, it's semiotics, it will communicate to others what your positioning is and how they should best make use of you, which is what you want them to do. So act on it, it's something you do. So work on the processes, on the standards, on the outputs that deliver this. You need to deliver training against it, of course, and coaching for any new evolved areas, and work on sharing it and its implications with stakeholders. Ask their input, strengthen it as a result, etc. So what does it mean for them in terms of how you work together and what they expect from you? Really important when you're going through this process to think of it objectively. You've got your purpose, you've managed to decide what that is. Hopefully it's fairly high level and not very close to what. So, it's very close to what the business might need. So have a look at that, write that out and say, okay, so we're going to forget about everything that we currently are. If that is what our purpose is, what would we be doing? If we came across a department that did that, that fulfilled that purpose, what would we find them doing? And how would we find them doing it? So have a bit of a think about that. What will we do differently? And I've got this lovely dog here because, not just because I love dogs, but because it's defined by what you're not. So what you don't do will define you as well as what you're doing. Now this is a tricky one really, because no one in the business wants you to say, we're not going to be doing this or that anymore. It's just not going to happen. But of course, if you are going to be clearly defined, you have to be defined by what you're not as well as what you are. So that means that in order to do more of what you know you now need to do more of, to be able to be the department with that amount of influence and effectiveness, and to be able to deliver better the business, you're going to have to do less of something else, because you can't just say we want to be able to do more of this. So how are you going to manage doing less of something? Can you make it more efficient? Can you get freelancers to do it more cheaply somehow? Can you outsource it in a different way? Can you use technology to do it? Can you persuade people that it's not necessary? What can you do to do less of the things that don't position you where you need to be? Really important, because while you're still doing a lot of those things, people will see you as doing those things, and your positioning won't have shifted. So really essential for doing that. Cool. Next, how to make your positioning stronger. Make it higher order, as we've said. Be single-minded. Don't be tempted to wordsmith this thing, because if you wordsmith it too much, you will end up with something very bland. So if you are trying to look at two statements, try and find out which is the higher order and which is the most powerful, and really only have one. So this power is really important. It's intended to inspire direct action, which is great. So no generalizations. Keep it simple, keep it directive. This is a worksheet, which is part of the resources pack, which I'll be sending you, which is good. So what this is basically allows you to give your current positioning a score. So if you think about, go back to the levels where you've got 4 levels, where are you? And actually it should be out of 4, not out of 16. So you can give yourself, don't give yourself a heart attack with that. And then, actually no, if you do it, sorry, if you do it this way, it's better. So the why, the what we do, how we do it, and does it drive recruitment? So yes, actually it is out of 16. So give yourself a score of 4 out of each of those. You can even plot it on a graph to see where your strengths are more visually or whatever. And then you can work on improving against each of these. So your purpose, and then how does it impact my goals that I have a score of whatever? Have a score of 3, or I've got a score of 1. What is it doing to impact the goals that you have? What would a top score enable you to do? Have a think about what your challenge is in able to increase that score, and what is the first thing you're going to do to improve it, and so you can make a start. And basically it's the same on what you do, which has to, of course, only be related to what it is that your purpose is, ideally. If you're trying to get rid of the stuff that isn't, and try to expand the stuff that delivers better against it. How you do it, have a think about that. What skills might you need in your team? Will you be able to, do you have to be able to, I don't know, be faster at developing video? What do you need to be able to do? Do you need greater facilitation skills in your team? Do you, what is it that you're going to need? So, or maybe it's not about that at all. Maybe it's about you've got the skills, you're just not using them, in which case, let's have a think about that. Or that people are not used to you using them. Can you find a way to interact with them in the way that you think will be best for them? And then does it drive recruitment? Have you got the list of skills, probably soft skills, or just as possibly soft as hard skills, on your recruitment criteria for your team, so that they can deliver against what you think that purpose is? Cool. So let me just tell you a little bit about my business. I hope that's been useful for you in terms of how to create your positioning and how it can take you up the effectiveness ladder and give you more of those things you want, like budgets and autonomy and mastery, and have a team. So this is what I do. I work basically around the idea of oiling your business. So I seem to have lost the third one. There you go. So I work on collaboration, influence, and communication. And mainly about increasing people's effectiveness. And I do that via 3 means here. I have 3 focuses, and these there are various component parts of each of these, and they can be delivered via keynote speeches. They can be delivered via training, coaching, one-on-one or in a group, facilitation for some of them, and the positioning work, of course, is done via facilitation, not training. And they are in 3 areas. So revenue generation for professionals, that's not anything I've touched upon here. That works more for sort of suppliers. Creating influential teams, of course, there are many components to that, mainly based around those 4 circles, which we went through that model before. And then focus on 3 is selling your thinking. So this is more about communication and a stronger focus on that. So this is what I'm doing. And if you think that you'd like to have a conversation about how I might be able to help, or you'd like to see if there's a white paper on any of these things that you'd like to read, please let me know. There is a white paper on this for marketing, and be very happy to share it with you. So just let me know. And this is it. So we will send you a link to the recording of the webinar, positioning ladder model, the worksheet, the link to the video on Simon Sinek saying start with why, and a few blogs and articles on positioning. I'd just like to say thank you very much indeed for attending. It's been great to have you with me, and I hope you all are going to be able to put some of this into practice. So that's it really. I just want to say thanks very much, and keep a lookout on LinkedIn and in your inbox for things that I'll be sending you. So thanks very much. Cheerio and have a great day.